Welcome to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez, joined by my co-host, Mr. Javier Perez. Today we have a special guest, Mr. James Rodriguez, an attorney here in Houston, is joining us for the day. I'll tell you what, this is great weather right here in Houston's
You like hot and humid, it's perfect weather, isn't it?
Great weather compared to what it was. I mean, come on,
that's
it
true,
was
yeah.
raining.
Not
Even
raining.
Sunday it was raining.
Sure was.
We're live television, by the way. We're here recording in the Houston Media Source, which is just east of downtown Houston, right off Navigation. So thank you for
Harrisburg.
coming out.
Thank you, sir. It's kind of hard to find.
Navigation in Harrisburg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it though.
You found it, huh?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Glad to be here.
Today we're going to talk a little politics, and we're going to talk about Mr. James Rodriguez and all his stuff that he's doing. I'll tell you what, this gentleman right here has a great track record as an attorney, has a lot to say, so we're going to get it right into it. Let's talk a little politics first.
Oh boy.
There's a lot of politics talking about firearms because of what happened in Orlando, Florida. As you know, we had 50 dead. Is it still 50, or has it increased?
No, I think
Well,
it's still
49 dead,
49 plus the shooter.
and 53 wounded, is my understanding.
We had an ISIS shooter pretty much go into a Latino gay club
Correct.
and pretty much shot 50 people dead.
It was my understanding it was Latino night.
Okay.
And the majority of them were Puerto Rican.
Okay.
They have a big population of Puerto Ricans there in Orlando. So I want to say 3/4 of them were Latinos who were killed.
So, you know, this is very unfortunate. Obviously, something like this, if it were to happen here in Houston, I don't know what would happen. I mean, the mere fact that it happened in Orlando, which is heavily Hispanic population over there, it's pretty much like having it here in Houston. They have a big demographic of Hispanics there in Florida. I'm just glad it didn't happen here.
Well, of course, but it's still a tragic thing. And the issue becomes, apparently this guy was on a terror list, right? And if you're on a terror list, there was a bill up before Congress that says, if you're on a terror list, we don't want you to be able to buy a gun. Well, of course, Republicans, the pro-guns that they are, voted that down. So then people are making big hoopla about that in terms of, should you, if you're on a watch list, FBI's watching you, should you be able to buy a gun?
An assault rifle at that.
An assault rifle. So what do you guys think about that one?
Well, obviously, I'm against that. I know Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee was going to try to pass some legislation regarding that. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's that's really tough, Ben, because I mean, of course, you don't want. How do you keep it out of their hands without having some kind of big, long, drawn out court battle? I mean, because can you be convicted just for thinking, or just for supporting, you know, a certain ideology or a certain ideal? Is that enough to take away your rights to own a firearm? I mean, I know something has to be done. It's a tough battle, because I think it's wrong to blame the gun, because don't legally take my gun, you know, if you want to keep somebody else from getting the gun.
But we're talking about assault rifles, so it's a different category of guns. It's one thing to have a little gun in the house for your protection. It's a totally different deal when you have an assault rifle.
Yeah, there's the big wave now to ban assault rifles, because they say, well, if you want to go hunting, do you need an assault rifle to go deer hunting? Or
yeah, I tell you, I've deer hunted with assault rifles, you know, and it's more for varmint hunting, because, you know, assault rifle is not that big a caliber. It's basically a glorified 22 caliber rifle, but it's made, of course, it's kind of light for deer hunting, to tell you the truth, but it can be used for hunting. But I tell you one thing. If you're protecting your house, and I've had that happen to me also, that the minute I pulled out my assault rifle over some people that were breaking into my neighbors, all of a sudden they were gone. They didn't argue, they didn't wait around, they just got in their car and got the hell out of there. So, you know, yeah, there's two ways.
I'll tell you, it's a tough topic, because
yeah,
you know, I'm on the left side, right? But I do believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in the right to bear arms, but I think there's a limit on what you should be able to own, and we need a little bit more restrictions on people that have mental issues, people that are on watch lists, so that, you know, we can be more vigilant about that.
I would agree with that, but let me add to this, because you're obviously for assault weapons. Now, when the bad guys, and I'm talking about the thieves and so forth, have better guns than the police, and I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should have assault rifles out in the street.
Yeah. You know, Ben, it's not so much that I'm pro assault rifle, because I was having this conversation with my son, who's very pro pro gun, and I said, but and you know, we're talking about the presidential campaign, and that's like his number one
Issue
is guns. Now, son, is that the most important? Is that how you want to base your? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do, but I think there's more important things than, and especially in this election, than just the right to bear arms. I think we'll always have that right. Hopefully, I mean, that's what this country was founded on. I think we'll always have it. But,
don't tell me your son is going to vote for Trump.
Oh,
don't even tell me that.
I would kill that son of a gun myself. I would choke him, even though he could take me in a second, because he's a big kid. But I hope not. Oh man, I would let him hear it. He might just vote for him and then not tell me.
Well, the problem about when you talk about gun restrictions, they start saying, well, Obama and Hillary, they're going to take your guns away. They worry about that, right? But that's not what it's about. It's about just putting restrictions on it. But people go, crazy because they think they're going to take their guns away, and that's by far, it's not going to happen. It's just like the automobile industry. When you remember back when the Pinto was blowing up and they were having all these deaths with cars, all they did was make them safer, and they put more restrictions. And then it made it safer, and there was less death. But, it's a tough topic. It really is.
And the thing about it is that this guy bought it legally. He bought it
couple days prior.
and you, just like me and you would be able to do it.
Yeah, a couple days prior.
And I mean, how could, I mean, you're an attorney, James. How do you legislate that? Well, if you're on a watch list or blah blah blah, if someone deems that you cannot buy a firearm, well, that doesn't seem like it stick up in court.
No, but there are actually watch lists the FBI puts out for people who, have had Muslim ties to ISIS and all this other stuff, and they have them on these lists. It's kind of like the no-fly list on people that board planes.
Yeah.
If you're on that list, you can't fly. Well, they should have that, I think, for guns, and they do. And they tried to legislate it, and Congress said no. They didn't want it because they thought by doing that it was going to spread to just the common folk, right?
All right.
And thus restrict people's rights to own guns.
I would be in support of that. If we could figure a way how to do that, if we can, he makes a good point. If you're on people on no-fly list, well, there shouldn't be a no-gun-buy list too. But
I mean, if the guy's on the list, he doesn't get to buy those guns. He doesn't go in there and shoot those people. I mean, that's the way I see it.
But I still think there would be a way for him to get those guns if he really wanted it. He can get them.
It made it a little harder though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And who's to say that if it took him a cooling period of 7 days or to find the guns, he might think twice about it and not do it.
That's true.
I mean, you never know. But you're right. If somebody wants a gun, they're going to get a gun.
It's a tough topic, Ben. It's a tough topic,
really
and my thing, I just don't want to impede the rights of the law-abiding citizen, man. Don't make it harder for him because you want to keep it out of the hand of some nut. But maybe that's what we've been chewing away at our rights for years since 9/11 now.
And then I was frankly appalled by our lieutenant governor who tweeted out that tweet that said that basically that because those people were gay, they got what they deserved.
That
was
ridiculous.
He deleted it.
Thing.
Minutes later, I guess he started getting a lot of flack for it. But I thought that was just horrible by a politician.
That was a terrible thing to put out there.
No,
on his part.
and I would agree totally with that. I think it's important for politicians to be a little bit more discreet. They might think it, but to actually put it out on tweet, that was a bad move. Very bad move by Lieutenant Governor. Let's talk a little bit about the presidential race. As you know, we have a hotly contested race between Hillary and Donald Trump. Now, Senator Hillary Clinton, obviously she's going to win the nomination with no problem. Donald Trump's going to win the nomination for the Republicans. But you never know what's going to happen at the conventions. There might be a battle. Who knows what will happen.
Apparently Bernie's not giving up. And Bernie's going to bring his people there, and I think it's still going to be a little issue there at the convention for the Democrats.
Okay, so put all that aside. Let's just say those two are the two that are going to go at it in November. Now, you know better than I do, the Latino community votes about 60% Democrat, about 30% Republican, 10% either way, depending on which day it is, right? Now, because of all the anti-Latino rhetoric that Donald Trump has put out there, I really believe that there's going to be more Latinos voting on the Democratic Party.
I would hope so, and I've been having these debates on Facebook with a lot of people, and for me, for a Latino to vote for Trump, it's stunning. I mean, I just can't fathom it. And why would they want to support a man who not only talks about Mexican nationals, but came out and talked about this federal court judge, Judge Curiel, and he's a Mexican American. And he basically said that Mexican Americans, he lumped them in with Mexicans and said that they're subpar, and that his heritage had to do with his rulings and his ability as being competent.
He also mentioned that he was part of La Raza.
And you know what the La Raza was? It was called the San Diego La Raza Association of Lawyers, which is like Mexican American Bar Association. They just called it La Raza. And for them to take that out of context, and they don't know in the context of what people use La Raza for, right? You and I do.
It's totally different when you say La Raza in Spanish and when you say race in English.
Right.
Totally two different
It
meanings.
has nothing to do with race per
Absolutely.
se, right? It's
You're
just
absolutely
kind of
right. Absolutely
our
right.
kind of chant to, be our people, right? And so these guys took
La
it and
Raza
said,
actually translates more like the culture than
there you go.
the race.
There you go.
It means
Or the
culture.
people.
And these people took that and said it was some pro-immigrant and some kind of crazy organization he was a part of, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, he was biased towards Trump because of all his rhetoric.
Well, leave it to social media.
Yeah.
Leave it to the
I
media
tell
in general.
people, what you read on Facebook is about 15% true, man. I mean, it's a lot of stuff is
It
just
can be
on it.
tilted so many ways.
Oh, big time.
Absolutely.
Big time. It's crazy.
So let's talk about the vice presidential candidate. So obviously, that's going to be a big factor.
That is a big one.
A big deal. I'm just going to throw a curveball out there. What if, and it might not happen, but what if there was a Latino that was on the Trump card
I've heard that. I heard the Castro.
and there was no Latino on the Hillary card?
Oh, talking on the, okay. Oh, that's a good one. Trump might throw that curveball, huh?
I'm just throwing
So-
it out there.
I
So
think
if it
he
happens-
threw it, they would have to put a Latino on the ticket for the Democratic side. I think they would feel.
If Trump threw that curveball, who would he pick?
Well, regardless of who, I mean,
Yeah.
it brings a total different dynamic.
He might just ask
I
Lion
don't know.
Ted.
I don't know. People that I don't think that's going to sway the educated voter because they know what Trump's about and they should know. And for everything that he's said about Latinos and all the anti-immigrant rhetoric that he's put out there, there may be a few that are on the fence, but those that know better, they're not going to vote for him. They shouldn't.
I would put nothing past Trump at this point. I mean, what he's done in the past couple months surprised a lot of people.
But let me ask you this, since you bring that up, who would you think that he would put on there as a Latino?
I have no idea. I don't even know if anybody would
'Cause
take it.
Huh? I
don't
don't
know
think
if
there's
anybody
anybody
would take
left. I mean, he took Rubio and Cruz out.
Well, it doesn't matter if they were presidential candidates or not. They don't have to be former presidential candidates. They can be anybody. It could be Javier Perez.
I think. Oh, please. I think he would reach out to Ted Cruz.
Ted already said he didn't want it, but regardless,
Oh, how many times we heard that? So did
Regardless.
George Bush said the same thing for Reagan.
Exactly.
Yeah, and him and Reagan had a heck of a knockdown drag out up to the primary.
in case you don't know, Javier is Tea Party.
Yeah, man, don't even play like that, please. It's ridiculous.
So let's throw another curveball, okay? So we have, let's say, the mayor from San Antonio,
Joaquin
Castro.
Castro.
Joaquin Castro, become the VP for the Democrats.
All right.
And then we have a third party. They're always talking about this third party that has Latino VP. And then we have, of course, Donald Trump and his entourage. But there's a lot of folks that don't like Hillary.
There is, and that's been an issue. Let me just tell you, and this has gone back from Bill Clinton, them bashing them, and there's all the scandals and the Monica Lewinsky thing and Whitewater, and it is all piled up on Hillary. And if you want to debunk each one of those scandals, even from Benghazi to the emails, I mean, look, Condoleezza Rice, the former Secretary of State, she deleted 22 million emails, so they say, right? So it's kind of a double standard for me, for her. But you're right. There are people who automatically, you mention her name, oh man, she's a crook, I'm not voting for her no matter what.
But what if there's a third party that has a VP that's Latino?
I don't know. I guess it depends on who it is, and I guess they would run as an independent.
I don't think that essentially would hurt, just depending who the presidential candidate is.
You got to remember, there's a lot of people that don't like either Trump or Hillary.
Can you imagine if Bernie would have ran as an independent? Because he was an independent before he became a Democrat. And
well,
maybe he should have done that, and he
can still do it.
He could still do it, but
yeah. Maybe that's why he's continuing the way he's doing it.
Maybe so. It's going to be interesting. And you know, the convention's coming up in July. It's less than a couple weeks away. So
right. Where's the convention at? The Democratic convention?
Oh God, I don't know. I want to say it was in Florida, but maybe I'm wrong.
I can't remember.
I don't know.
You remember?
I sure don't, Ben. Hey, somebody back in the
the studio.
in the studio, Google it and let us know. But let me ask you this, James: if there is a serious third party candidate, now of course it still goes by electoral college votes.
Right.
So just whoever gets the most votes would win, or do they have to reach a certain
that's
level?
interesting because I can't remember in my lifetime when there was 3 parties running for the presidency. I mean,
yeah.
So
Perot,
you have to have.
Perot was
right, but he didn't make it to the.
But he didn't. He didn't take any. He really just took votes.
Right.
He affected the election, but didn't take any electoral
That's interesting because you have to have a certain amount. There's 434 electoral colleges. You got to have 200 and something. So if there's a 3-way split, what happens? Is there a runoff or not? That's I've never even thought about that. That's an interesting question.
Be interesting with that third party because that's the way it looks like it's going. We're going to have a lot of people voting for the third party just because they're upset right now. Politics in general.
I tell you, Ben, it's going to be, whew.
But you know, there's so many people, especially a lot of our people, especially Chicanos, that vote their prejudice over their pocketbooks because, you know, they, for whatever reason, they want an R behind their name and they have no business voting that way. That's my opinion, right? And so, you know, that's why you get the 60-30 or even 60-40 for Latinos that are voting 60 Democrat, 60-40. You have African Americans who tend to vote 95-5, right? 95% Democrat. And you ask yourself, well, why? And people come up with all kinds of, you know, arguments or explanation as to why. You know, why do we tend to vote or starting to vote more on the Republican side?
Well, it goes back to they're tired. They're tired of voting for the same people over and over. They want new blood. That's why the Republicans won Harris County a couple years ago. After Obama won his election, the 4 years after that, Harris County was pretty much all Republican, and it swept out all those judges, as you know.
Well,
and
no,
that's in the governor's race.
It was
Ben.
2010?
Presidential race, it doesn't.
It wasn't a clean sweep, but there was a few that taken back. There are still the majority Democratic judges here in Harris County on the district court side, on the civil district court side.
On Harris County?
Yes.
Okay. So right now what we're looking at, if you look at all the incumbents from Harris County, it's predominantly Republican. Predominantly Republican. And so how many judgeships are there in Harris County?
Oh, God. Are you talking from just to the
All
peace
judges.
all the way?
All judges.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Because you got county court at laws, you got civil district courts, criminal courts, municipal courts.
Justice of the Peace.
Justice of the Peace. I mean, there's
quite a few.
Then you got federal court judges. I mean, it's Court of Appeals judges.
In the last election, which was just recently, we had 330,000 Republicans and about 220,000 Democrats. Okay, 100,000 plus more Republicans than Democrats. That's in Harris County alone.
That was on the. This is now the presidential election, which everybody.
Well, I'm talking about the presidential race.
This is 2000.
I'm talking about March primary.
Okay.
Okay, so as a result, a lot of people predict there's going to be a clean sweep. Okay, there was a lot of people that were excited about this race, especially in the Republican side because of all the candidates running for president. Very few candidates on the Democratic side. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in November when we don't have all those candidates running. It's just 3 people at the most that are going to mean anything. You're going to be a write-in candidate for president?
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely going to be interesting to find out what happens. I mean, you had to flip I mean, right now they're neck and neck in national polls. I think Hillary overtook him a little bit because it was last week, you know, because apparently she won the nomination when she won California. And then he's opened his mouth again and said some other stuff and then that judge, all the stuff he said about the judge too affected him. So I think she's winning a little bit in the polls again. But it goes back and forth.
So the Democratic convention's in Philadelphia.
There you go.
Philadelphia, how about that?
What a great
Interesting.
place. We're the birthplace of the Constitution.
That's
huh?
it.
Yeah.
So getting back to the races here in Harris County, the races that are going to probably draw the most people are going to be at the county-wide level, okay?
Right.
And there's only a few that Latinos are participating in. One is the sheriff's race,
Right.
where
Ed.
we have Mr. Ed Gonzalez. He's running against the current sheriff. And by the way, the current sheriff has never run in an election before, except for this past March, okay? But in the general election, this will be his first election. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And then we have another race at the state level. We have what's his name? I can't think of his name. The state representative that's Latino that's running against Marianne Perez in the southeast over there by Pasadena.
Oh yeah, the Republican.
Yeah, I can't think of his name
I know
right
who
now.
you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
Okay, so we have two
Google it.
Latinos, two Latinos running against each other for the state rep seat, and that's a fairly new district. It's been around for a couple of years near Pasadena. So the Latino's going to win that race for sure.
Regardless, right?
Regardless.
That's the same. That's the same race they had a couple years back where Marianne,
Yeah,
was the
Marianne.
incumbent. She lost.
Yeah, Marianne Perez was the incumbent. She lost her seat to this gentleman.
To the Republican, right? And now it's a rematch.
And now it's a
Now it's a
rematch.
rematch.
Yeah.
Right.
So she's coming back with vengeance. It'd be interesting to see what happens on
Yeah.
that deal. And then we have the constable's race. We have Precinct 6. We have Mr. Gonzalez running against Sylvia Trevino.
Right.
That's Mr. Trevino's
Victor Trevino's wife
Victor
is
Trevino's.
running in the Democratic side. Then we have Rick Gonzalez on the Republican side. Obviously, it's a Democratic seat.
And a write-in candidate.
Oh, you're right in Canada?
Jesse Hernandez.
Oh, Jesse, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've met him before, Ben.
Okay.
He's helped NHPO before.
Okay.
Yeah, gentleman. Yeah, retired police officer.
Okay. So, is there any other Latinos running that? There's a judgeship for Justice of the Peace. Tanya, is Tanya?
No, Tanya didn't.
No,
make
she didn't make it. She didn't
She
make
didn't
it.
make it.
Okay.
She was in the runoff and
Yeah.
she didn't make it.
Okay. So who else? Which other Latinos are running in Harris County? I can't think of any right now.
There may be in the district court judge. I don't know if Deborah Mayfield Ibarra or Deborah Ibarra Mayfield may be running again, or something.
He is. Yeah.
She may have somebody against her. She's the incumbent. I mean, she's
Yeah.
the judge right now, and I want to say somebody else, and I just can't think. I don't know.
Medina's not running?
No.
No? Okay. So we have a couple races for our Latino community that they need to be aware of.
Yeah.
These races are obviously very important. They go from sheriff all the way to state rep.
I
constable.
think Ed's race is big. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, of
and,
course. I mean, that's
and
Harris
quite
County
frankly,
wide.
he did pretty good in his race. I mean, so it's going to all about the votes coming out, and our people tend not to vote sometimes, right? And hopefully they come out hard on the presidential election because of the anti-Trump sentiment. So
Right.
hopefully that helps Ed out a lot.
The other race that's going to be of interest is the district attorney's race. We have Kim Ogg.
Kim Ogg, yeah.
Kim Ogg is running against the incumbent. Kim Ogg ran last time. She didn't make it, obviously, but she's given it second chance. And the incumbent, I wouldn't say it's going to be a shoo-in for the incumbent.
No, she.
A lot of Republicans are worried, especially here in Harris County.
She had a good backing.
How they're going to go? How it's going to go?
So
Depending on what kind of anti-Trump sentiment they're going to have those so-called minority voters, black, African American, Hispanics coming in here and seeing how heavy a turnout they have. I mean, or what's his name? The guy running for sheriff against Ed
Hickman.
Higman. He's worried. He's worried
he's gotta
about
be.
he's worried about those
And look,
straight
he's
tickets.
had a lot of issues in his short tenure there at the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of issues come out.
Yeah,
so.
Ed's it turned out well. He's always been a great guy, great leader, It's a tough candidate.
Yes, he is.
It's a tough candidate. So.
And you know, he had all those issues with that Black Lives Matter and that guy that black guy that shot the sheriff, and then they said it, and then they had all these goings on inside the sheriffs. They were sleeping with this woman, and it became just a big old
mess.
Yeah, big mess, you know.
So before I forget, because I know I'm going to forget if I don't say it now, our producer just got married. Did you still hear wedding bells?
Oh man, it's still honeymoon time.
Is it still honeymoon?
I hear the Mayanitas in the back still, you know.
I hear the mariachis in the background. Enrique Arana, our producer, obviously just got married. So congratulations, Enrique. My condolences, I mean.
So Sarah's a great, you know, both of them were in the NHPO Leadership Institute.
That's right.
Did y'all make the cut? Were you invited to the
We were
wedding?
not invited. Well, I don't know if you were. I wasn't invited.
You know, they got married in Vegas by Elvis. I don't know about that.
All I know was there was a chimpanzee there somewhere.
Well, you know, those destination weddings are to keep out, you know, they don't have to pay for everybody.
Keep the riffraff from coming,
So we're going to take a little...
two great people. Really congratulate them.
So we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back in 2 minutes, and when we do, we're going to talk a little bit about Mr. James here and all his successes. So we'll be back. Don't leave us. Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez, joined by Mr. Javier Perez. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about Mr. James Rodriguez and how he got started as an attorney. So let's start from the very beginning. Where are you from, James?
Well, originally from Bryan, College Station. I was born in Bryan, fourth generation Texan. I went to Bryan High School and I went to Texas A&M. And then I went up to Washington, D.C. I wanted to be a politician until I found out what really goes on. And I worked for on the Hill as a legislative aide there. And then
For who?
Pete Guerin. He was a 12th district out of Fort Worth.
Okay.
And then in the early 90s, I came back. My mom says, "Hey, when are you going to come back? What are you doing up there?" I said, "Well, I'm working." She says, "Yeah, but you're supposed to go to law school." And I said, "Okay." So, and it was time to put up or shut up. So I came back and then enrolled at the University of Houston and got my law degree. And then I started working, and you know, within the last 8 years, we've opened up our own firm, and it's now Padilla Rodriguez, with my partner John Padilla.
Okay.
And we specialize in catastrophic litigation, personal injury, and we do some overtime, failure to pay overtime cases as well. We have an office in Los Angeles, and we have our main office here in Houston. And it's been a one heck of a ride, let me tell you. But we love what we do, and it's hard work, but it's very rewarding, and I love helping people. I love helping people.
So let's talk a little bit about what happens behind the scenes in your career path that you've had. I mean, does it really matter about relationships with the judges as people say it does?
Well, let me just say that, unfortunately, judges are elected. The only ones that aren't are federal court judges. It's a lifetime appointment. Right. And I'm for appointing judges from the Court of Appeals, the state district courts, and so forth, because when you let politics get in the mix, then you have these issues. Because someone who has a big case in front of a judge and it's time for re-election, what do? They go and make a donation. Yeah. So they think by making that donation, what is it going to do? It's going to have an influence, right? Whether it's undue or it's bias, and so everybody does it. So
the reason why I bring this up is because we look at that Stanford case. It was a rape case that he was a swimmer, I believe, at Stanford.
Right.
And he was probably 19, 20 years old, charged with rape, and they found him guilty, obviously. And they gave him 6 months for a rape charge. And if you look at other folks that have been in the same circumstances, they're getting, you know, much more bigger sentences, if you will.
Yeah.
10 years and so forth. I mean, obviously there was some kind of connection there.
Well, that's the old injustice, right? You got money and you can buy a great judge. I mean, buy a great lawyer and try to get you off, or is it your daddy is the CEO of something, right? And it matters. So that's the scales adjusters that aren't equal. And you know, if you get you know, they always say a Mexican can rob with a pen and get 20 years, and a white guy steals with a pen and, you know, or steals millions from a corporation like Enron and gets a slap on the wrist. I mean, it's
the white collar crime.
The white collar crimes, right? Yeah. As opposed to a crime by, you know, stealing a 12-pack of beer. It's crazy how the system is, and it shouldn't be, because, as you know, the scales are supposed to be blind. That's why the scale of justice has a blindfold on, but it's not, unfortunately. So.
And so, in your opinion, is it biased towards Latinos, the judicial system?
Well, I would say for the most part it is, and then you got the immigration courts, right? That's going on with all the deportations, and these young kids that have come over here from Central America that, you know, the judge wouldn't even appoint them a judge. I mean, a lawyer to represent them, counsel. Are you kidding me? You know, let a 8-year-old kid go in front of the judge, and what is he supposed to do? He doesn't speak English. I mean, of course it's, you know, and just think if it would have been some kids from Germany or something, would have been handled differently? I would say so. So, you know, unfortunately, it's about, you know, it's just like the O.J. Simpson case that's been coming up lately because of the 20th anniversary. He had assembled this dream team, right? And I believe that had a lot to do with him getting off. Did he do it? Probably did, and yeah, okay, but he got off because he had the best money he could buy with those lawyers. I mean, he had Alan Dershowitz, Johnny Cochran, F. Lee Bailey. I mean, you name them. That was like the dream team of lawyers. So when you got the money, it sure does help.
Boy, I tell you, it sure did. That I think that's a great example to use. I mean, just exactly how you can play the system.
And that was the first big case where a black man actually got away with murder, right? And then the white people kind of sat back and go, now you know how it feels. That's kind of what the African Americans were saying. See, now you know, all this time through the 60s and 50s, how your guys were getting away with, from the Emmett Till case back in the 50s, where they, you know, he whistled at the white lady at a convenience store or something, and they killed him, and they got a slap on the wrist, you know, and nobody did anything.
That reminds me when we had the riots at Moody Park, Jose Campos.
Nut.
The police officers that actually killed him, what did they get, $1 fine?
Yeah.
They didn't even serve any jail time for killing the guy? That's incredible.
Well, you know, I had an opportunity to work on the Juan Campos Torres case. Was the guy in Baytown that they choked him to death on video,
Okay.
and they no-billed those cops on the grand jury, and they had this on video. And when we had the protest over at the park, we had a sign that said, well, at least, you know, Rodney King lived, because he lived. His was on video. This guy was on video, and they were choking him, and he was calling for his life, and he died there on video, and they still didn't do anything to those cops. So I don't know what it takes sometimes.
What year was that?
It's probably late 90s, early 2000s out in Baytown.
I can't remember that case specifically, but so you're saying that they actually kill him on video.
They
How
have,
many
they
cops?
have the dash cam video. It was 2 cops.
2 cops.
Yeah.
And they showed him dying right
They
there.
have his knee on his neck, and this guy was kind of a heavy-set guy, and he was just, you know, wailing, and he couldn't breathe, and time you know it, he's dead, and the guy's like, hey, and then he starts freaking out, and he's got his little speaker there, and he's like, you know, he starts calling for backup and all this, but the guy's gone by that point.
I don't remember that case. Do you remember that?
I remember that case. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about some other cases that have been of interest to you.
Well, I worked on the Eli Escobar case too. Remember the 14-year-old boy that they shot in the back of the head?
I don't remember that one.
He's a big kid, and but he was mentally challenged, and he had gone over to some friend's house to play video games, and apparently one of his friends had gotten in trouble. Well, the cops went over there, knocked on the door, and all these kids are in there. It's summertime, and they just rustle them out, right? You know, and they're all scared, and they said, line them up. And this kid doesn't know any better. He's scared. He says, I just want my mama. And he starts taking off. And they grab him, they wrestle him down. And for some reason, this guy pulls his gun out, man, and he point blank, and he shoots him in the head. And there was tons of witnesses in that apartment complex.
Where was this at?
It was over there on Mangum Ella area.
So it was here in Houston.
Oh, yeah, it was
Okay.
Northwest Houston.
Okay.
And it was horrible, horrible. And
Obviously he died.
obviously he died, and that was the only child of this couple. And they had this baby was a miracle baby because they were old and they didn't think they could have kids, and they had this baby.
So he was mentally challenged?
He was a little mentally challenged. And this guy, for no reason, man, and when he shot him, he just got up and started walking like nothing. And even his partner was freaked out. He goes, what are you doing? What happened? Why'd you do that? And so, they fired the guy, but I mean, we effectuated maybe the largest settlement against the Houston Police Department in the history, I believe. And they created the rule, it's called the Escobar rule, named after him, that a cop's not supposed to index. In other words, put your finger on the trigger, when you pull your gun out. So
What are they supposed to do?
it's just have it like that.
Yeah, bring it with their finger straight out instead of being on the trigger.
Oh, okay.
Straight out.
Yeah, and it's called the Escobar rule. And in fact, when you go to the training center for the cadets, they have the big sign there. It's called the Escobar rule. That's what they're teaching. Because these guys came on, and he says the reason that the gun just went off, but those Glock 9s that they used were city issued back then. Man, it's hard to pull the trigger. So, but he says that he just, he had his finger on the trigger and it just went off. But who knows?
So he didn't get charged for anything, huh?
He got off on criminal charges, but he obviously we sued civilly. He got fired, but no murder charges.
So is he still a police officer?
Oh,
No, he was fired.
No, they fired him.
Yeah.
But it was, oh boy, it was a tragedy. That poor woman, I still remember her, the mama. She really took it hard. But other than that, we've done a lot of personal injury cases.
18-wheelers.
A lot of 18-wheeler cases, manufacturer cases. We just had one where a gentleman's driving down the road, and he's got a tank. It's one of those, they pick up grease from all these places.
Restaurants.
Yeah.
And it's half full, and it's raining on I-10. So he goes off the road, slides off, and go, well, that's not really the case, it's probably his fault. Well, we found out that the tires were faulty. I mean, they were slick, the brakes didn't work, and he had complained to his company about it, and they did nothing about it. And in fact, too, the company that made the cabs, when he flipped over, they just crushed like a can. And so our engineer said, for $300, all you gotta do is put these things on these cabs, and they wouldn't crush like that. So we actually bought one, dropped it 12 feet, and it's a big difference. Like, you know, one of them just crushes like a Coke can. You put these for $300 and watch it fall down, and, you know, it's a big difference. So it's very interesting what we do, because I call it social engineering, because you can change how companies do things, right? It's kind of like what we talked about gun safety. I mean, you make cars, like, just think about all what trial lawyers have created: shatterproof glass, childproof locks, everything that helps people, right? Safety-wise is kind of what I like to call social engineering. So
So let me ask you, were you an attorney before tort reform?
yeah.
How has that changed it, and what changes have you seen?
Well, back in 2003, when tort reform was Proposition 12, I would dare say that we did 30–40% of our business was medical malpractice. I do none of it now. I mean, I think I take it back. I may have 1 or 2 cases, but I could look at 1 million of them and take 1, just because of what they did. They put caps on the hospitals and doctors. And, you know, every day I have to get on my soapbox to people, because they call with a good case, and I'm like, well, you know, at the end of the day, though, it's not worth it. But they promised, back then, they told everybody the doctors can't practice anymore because all the lawyers are suing them. So they're all moving out of town. The Valley doesn't have any more specialists because, you know, and so the insurance company used doctors as pawns against the evil lawyers, right? People love doctors, but they hate lawyers. It's so easy to hate lawyers. So they said, hey, let's do this so the doctors can get better insurance, less premiums, and then come back and practice. Well, guess what happened? It didn't happen that way. Now that they don't get sued that much, but their premiums went up, and, you know, it's still the same situation, right? So, but yeah, it's affected a lot. And you know, I always tell people, I said, why is the one profession that I chose is the one where they want to put caps on how much you can earn, right? I mean, no one puts caps on hedge fund managers or CEOs who make $30 million a year playing golf and hanging out in the office.
I'm looking for that job.
Yeah, I am too.
I want to play golf. I want to play golf for a living.
I'm going to make you the CEO of Talento Bilingüe de Houston. And we're going to pay you $30 million.
I still wouldn't be able to play golf every day.
We're going to pay you $30 million in Monopoly money.
Speaking of $30 million, who's going to win the game tonight with LeBron and the Cavs versus Golden State?
That's another topic altogether. The basketball NBA finals are actually tonight, probably be the last game.
I think so.
But you got Golden State playing at home.
Yeah, I think they're going to.
It's going to be what, the fifth game?
Going to fold.
You know, they always say there's a conspiracy theory that the NBA wants it to go a little farther, you know, because it's about money. So it's 3-1. Do you close it out tonight or take it to Game 6? And Draymond Green's not playing because he got suspended for 1 game. So maybe. I mean, I'm not even watching it that much, to be honest with you. So for me, I'd rather just let them go ahead and close it out, and let's move on down the road.
I actually was looking forward to this series because it was kind of a rematch between LeBron and Curry.
Curry, yeah.
Curry, man, I don't care what people say. That guy can shoot.
Sure can.
That guy can make some baskets with your hand right in his face. Doesn't matter how tall you are. Yeah. He just manages to find that basket somehow. But let's get back to our discussion here. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about what James Rodriguez has done for Houston. Obviously, you've been involved with a lot of nonprofits, and you've been out there for a long time. Your service has not been unrecognized.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez, joined by Mr. Javier Perez. And today we're talking to Mr. James Rodriguez, the famous James Rodriguez, attorney here in Houston, Texas. So let's get back right to it. Now, you've been involved with numerous organizations in your tenure as an attorney. So let's get back from the very beginning when you first became an attorney and what organizations you've been involved
In my
with.
first meeting, a week after I was a lawyer, I went to the Mexican American Bar Association in Houston, MABA meeting, and kind of started working my way up the ranks. And eventually, I'd say 10, 15 years ago, I became president, maybe 10 years ago. But I've been from the recording secretary to the parliamentarian, all the way up, vice president. And then I'm still on the board, and I also chair the MABA golf tournament every year. That's kind of my way of giving back, to keep in. And then also I was vice president of Hispanic Bar at one point. And then I've done a lot of work with
Just so the viewers know what MABA stands for.
yeah, Mexican American Bar Association of Houston, MABA.
Okay, and then we have HISPA.
Which is the Hispanic Bar Association.
Okay. Is there a difference between the two?
There's a lot of people that overlap.
Okay.
They're members of both organizations, but frankly, MABA is more geared toward the solo lawyer,
Okay.
and HISBA caters to the corporate
Gotcha.
crowd.
I did
so to
not know
speak.
that.
That's kind of the way it's been.
Okay.
But we have a joint Christmas party. We do a lot of things together, scholarship, fundraisers, that thing. And then, of course, you have MABAT, which is a state MABA. And then you got National Hispanic Bar Association, which is a national organization.
But they're kind of affiliated.
Some of them, yeah, it depends on what state, but yeah, they have affiliations. Yeah, so.
So you know what? Our very good friend Janelle
Robles.
just graduated.
Just
Just
became an
graduated
attorney.
from law school. Just became an attorney. What can you tell these young attorneys, man? What do
I'll
they
tell
got
you
up
what,
against them?
it's all about networking, right? And you guys know, and this is a master network himself,
Yeah.
right? It's not what you know, it's who you know, and it's about getting out there and shaking hands. And
Yeah.
these people, and I'll tell them, first time you get out of law school, you want to go to MABA meetings, you want to go shake some hands, you want to get to know the judges, you want to get to know people. And because there's no easy way. I mean, unless you're top 10% of your class, it's hell out there to get a job. And a lot of people hang their own shingle up, but it's because they know people who they can office share or, go in with somebody. And it's good to have a mentor, right? Because it's hard to just go in there blinded and just try to learn like that. I always tell people, surround yourself with smart people and get with some older lawyers in a kind of a big setting and learn that way.
You know what I've noticed? I've known a lot of attorneys in my lifetime, and there's some attorneys that they win that first big case and they go blow their money and they forget about what bills they have to pay the next couple of months, and then they're begging for work.
That's right. That's right. I've seen it happen a lot. I mean,
You made a couple divorce attorneys real rich, didn't you?
I haven't been divorced but one time.
This is
That's all it takes.
This is in for you.
I learned my lesson.
You got to be in for the long haul. This business, it could eat you up and spit you out real fast. And some guys have gone the fast life and the fast lane, and it's easy to blow it that way. Yeah. But I love what I do, and I think that lawyers provide a valuable service. And the reason why people hate lawyers, because think about it, like you just said, oh man, I got divorced, I went bankrupt, I got hurt, I got thrown in jail. So you associate lawyers with bad things in your life. So it's kind of easy to put them in that category, right?
So why?
I always remember the line from Shawshank Redemption. Who said you never ask another convict what he's in for?
Yeah.
Hey, lawyer screwed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you have some attorneys that obviously get out of law school and then they go work for somebody. Do you recommend that people should go work for somebody first?
Actually, I do. Actually, I think it's
As a mentor type?
as a mentor, right? And like I did, and it really helped me out a lot. But there are those who don't have the choice. I mean, they got to get out there and
Because they're not hired.
No one wants to hire them, and what are you going to do? You just can't sit there, so you got to do something.
Yeah, it's kind of like Javier. Nobody wanted him. They just threw him out at TBH. You go work over there for a little while. We'll call you when we need you, Javier.
Appreciate that.
But yeah,
man.
the
Thank
best
you so
setting
much.
is to be able to learn on someone else's nickel, and then you go out on your own. and then you learn what not to do and what to do, right? The way they did it, you're your own boss at that point.
So, can you tell us some of the attorneys that you mentored?
Oh man, I've had a lot of them. You know, we have 4 lawyers right now in our office. You know, I never wanted. We kept saying, "Well, I don't want to grow anymore. I want to grow." And every year, I'm hiring another lawyer. I'm hiring another lawyer, and there's been so many been through MABA that I've had the opportunity. And I used to love to go, and I haven't done it in a while. And this is shame on me, but I used to like to go to the Hispanic Law Student Associations at each law school, and go over there and talk. You know, have lunch with them. We just order some pizzas and we just talk. And even mentoring kids, because I feel that, you know, you got to catch these kids early nowadays, right? I mean, if you start talking to them and past middle school, they're gone, man. They're either going to be who they're going to be, or they're, you know. So, you know, MABA puts on a leadership class for kids, take them to court at the end and show them, because as you know, and Javier probably can, when you grew up, you didn't have too many people of brown color that were doctors or lawyers or professional, right? They always tell me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "A lawyer," but I never knew what a lawyer was. I just happened to say it. And that was when it was time to do it, my mom said, "I thought you were going to be a lawyer." I go, "Well, I was just saying that, really." 'Cause I never knew you know, I never saw a brown lawyer before.
Yeah.
So
I tell you, you know, it's real. I know, you know, being with the Leadership Institute, Ben, and we gave one of our Lifetime Achievement Awards to Fulgencio Reyes. And, you know, he told me a lot of exactly what James is talking about. He said when he came out of law school, man, he said a couple of the judges had to take one of the wing for him to know how to do the job properly.
that's
you know,
kind of how MABA started.
Yeah.
And here at MABA, Houston, 1972, a bunch of Latino lawyers got together here on the East End at La Merida, I think, one of these restaurants, and they didn't have mentors. So they said, let's just mentor ourselves and learn, and you know, form this organization. So that's Fulgencio was there, and he was one of the young ones.
Yeah.
They took him under his wing. So the rest is history.
So let's talk about some of the icons in your industry that are Latino. Who are they?
Well, you know,
here in Houston?
You know, Professor Salinas, Lupe Salinas.
Lupe Salinas?
Yeah, well, he was a judge, and now he's a professor at TSU. Fulgencio, man, he's a legend around here.
Fulgencio went to TSU also?
Yeah, he was TSU.
He went to TSU.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of lawyers that are behind the scenes too that you know, they don't like to get out, or they don't like the accolades, but they do a lot of good work, man. And then, you know, there's district court judges like Deborah Mayfield Barra, who's a MABA. She used to be MABA president, who's a district court judge, and that's bodes well.
I got to meet her this past year.
Look at David Medina.
And she's a very
We
sharp.
met her at the graduation.
She's a very sharp jurist. I mean, she's a great lawyer. And look at Judge Medina. You know, he was Supreme Court Justice.
David
Medina, yeah. And he's still very active in MABA. So, I mean, MABA has some, you know, and HISBA too, from Alberto Gonzalez, who was the first Latino Attorney General of the United States, was, I believe, president of Hispanic Bar of Houston. So, I mean, that's big time.
Yeah.
We've had some.
Albert Gonzalez?
Alberto Gonzalez, yeah. That time he was with Vincent and Elkins or Fulbright, I think, one of those big firms.
I haven't heard that name in a while. Ever since he worked for President Bush.
Right. But
I haven't heard.
But he was very involved in HISBA at one time when he was a young lawyer. So,
what's he doing now?
I want to say he's teaching law school somewhere.
I think he is. Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's doing. I heard him the other day.
But we've had some legends come out of you know, these organizations that you know, I'm very proud of.
That's good. It's always good to have mentors.
I tell you, man, we've I tell you, and a lot of the attorneys that James was talking about, I mean, these guys made some amazing advances for Latinos. I mean, if it weren't for Fulgencio Reyes in his early dealings with redistricting, we wouldn't have the city council we have today. You know, he's the one that took that to court, or they all got him, and he's the one that was the mouthpiece for everybody.
I
took that to court.
I had the pleasure of knowing Judge James DeAnda, who was the second federal court judge in the history of the United States, Latino, Mexican-American. And that man...
He passed already.
He passed, I'd say about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe more. But he was just a wealth of information. Just incredible, the stories he would tell you. I mean, he did that case where the Voting Rights Act down in Jackson County here, where they wouldn't put Latinos on the jury. and he fought that one. He was on the team that argued the Supreme Court case, the first one with Latinos. You know, so.
Well, don't forget your mentor, Senator Cruz.
Oh my God, Ted Cruz.
He's like, no comment. He went in front of the Supreme Court I don't know how many times.
Yeah, and argued against LULAC, right, for the gerrymandering.
I remember that.
Yeah, and won, beat us, right?
Yeah, I remember
That's
that.
why we have all these districts that look like just a pole, right? You know.
Yeah.
Like Gene Green's seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget the lawyer who argued. She's a brilliant lawyer too for Maldev. I forget her name. She went head to head with him. If I told you her name, you know her.
Okay.
She's a great lawyer, and but unfortunately he prevailed on those cases. But he was the big lawyer on that
Speaking of attorneys, remember Edgar Saldivar? You know Edgar, don't you?
one. Edgar, no, I don't.
Edgar
Well,
Saldivar. He just became the attorney for ACLU. Is it ACLU? I can't remember what it stands for, but the Civil Rights Organization.
Civil Liberties Union.
Yeah, civil liberties.
American Civil Liberties Union.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Edgar from NHPO.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He's the vice president for, I think it's HISPA.
Okay.
Under Angela?
Yeah, under Angela.
Yeah, he's the vice president.
Well, it's always good to see, people even in your leadership classes and all that going to do bigger and better things, man. It's awesome.
That's the only way we're going to improve our community.
That's right.
Yeah, if we mentor others and help them succeed.
People need to realize sometimes that you never stop learning, right?
Sure.
Because you get intellectually lazy,
Yeah.
and you always got to soak stuff in.
And you forget.
And you forget
things.
Yeah, that's right.
Unfortunately, we got to get going here. We've run out of time. Remember, every Monday night here at 6 p.m., it's live television from Houston's East End. We call it Houston Media Source. So we'll see you next week. Bye.